A wooden chair scrapes across the floorboards of an empty room. It is past midnight in Robertson County, Tennessee, and John Bell is lying on his back in the dark, listening. The knocking is in the walls again. It started outside, on the logs of the cabin, 3 sharp raps like a fist. Then it moved inside. Now something is chewing the bedpost. His daughter Betsy, 12 years old, is screaming in the next room because her hair has just been pulled straight up off the pillow by a hand she cannot see. John Bell is a respected farmer, a church elder, a man who does not lie, and he has begun to suspect that whatever is in his house intends to kill him. The Bell family settled on a stretch of farmland along the Red River in the community of Adams around 1804. John Bell had moved his wife Lucy and their children north from North Carolina, looking for richer soil and a quieter life. By 1817, he had it. 320 acres, a 2-story log home, corn, tobacco, livestock, and 9 children, the youngest still a toddler. The Bells were Baptists. They were prosperous. They were the kind of family neighbors borrowed from and walked to church with on Sundays. Adams, Tennessee, in 1817 is not a place that asks for attention. It is a frontier farming settlement of a few dozen families, most of them related by marriage, most of them tied to the same congregation at Red River Baptist Church. News travels by horseback and front porch. Strangers are noticed. Secrets are difficult. That is the world the Bell family lives in the day John Bell walks out into his cornfield and sees an animal that should not exist. According to accounts later compiled by family members and neighbors, it has the body of a dog and the head of a rabbit. He raises his rifle. He fires. The thing is gone. That evening, the knocking begins on the outside walls of the house. At first, the family treats it as an animal. John Bell and his sons walk the perimeter with lanterns. They find nothing. The next night, the sounds are louder. The night after, louder still. Within weeks, the disturbances move indoors. Bed covers are pulled from sleeping children. Chairs slide. Stones strike the walls from inside the room. The youngest daughter, Betsy, becomes the focus. Something slaps her across the face hard enough to leave handprints. Something yanks her hair. She faints. She wakes up screaming. John Bell tells no one outside the family. For nearly a year, the Bells try to absorb it alone. Then John Bell tells his closest friend and neighbor, James Johnston. Johnston comes to the house, spends the night, and reportedly leaves the next morning, convinced that whatever is happening is, in his words, beyond human power. He begins to pray aloud in the bedroom. The disturbances stop for a moment, then resume with greater force. This is where the case takes a turn no investigator could have predicted. The thing in the house begins to speak. It starts as a whisper, then a whistle, then a clear, articulate voice. It can quote scripture, sometimes 2 sermons at once, repeating word for word what was preached that morning at 2 different churches miles apart. It carries on conversations with visitors. It tells jokes. It sings hymns. It gives itself, at various times, several different names. The one most often recorded is simply Kate. Word spreads. By 1819, the Bell farm has become a destination. Neighbors arrive at dusk and sit in the parlor waiting for the voice. Travelers detour from the main road, and, according to John Bell family records and the account later published by Richard Williams Bell, one of those visitors is Andrew Jackson. The future president, at this point a general, is said to have ridden up from Nashville with several companions to see the disturbance for himself. The story goes that as his wagon approached the Bell property, the wheels locked, the horses strained. The wagon would not move. A voice from the trees reportedly said, "All right, General, let the wagon move." The wheels turned again. That night, one of Jackson's men, a self-described witch hunter, produced a silver bullet and announced he would shoot the entity. He was, according to the account, slapped, kicked, and chased from the house by something none of the other men could see. Jackson is reported to have said afterward, "I would rather fight the entire British Army than deal with the Bell Witch." The story is unverified. Jackson's own papers do not mention the visit, but the people of Adams told it for generations as fact. Through 1819 and 1820, the entity's behavior shifts. It becomes affectionate toward Lucy Bell, singing to her when she is ill, dropping fruit into her lap. It becomes protective of the Bell sons. It becomes obsessed with Betsy's romantic life, tormenting her until she breaks off her engagement to a local boy named Joshua Gardner. And it makes a promise. It tells the household, repeatedly, that it intends to kill John Bell. John Bell's health begins to fail in 1820. His face seizes up. His tongue swells. He cannot eat. He cannot speak for hours at a time. He is bedridden by autumn. On the morning of December 9, 1820, the family finds him unresponsive. On a shelf nearby is a small vial of dark liquid that no one in the family recognizes. John Bell Jr. asks aloud what the vial is. The voice answers. It says it gave the contents to his father the night before, that it poured the liquid down his throat while he slept. A small amount is tested on the family cat. The cat dies almost immediately. John Bell dies later that day. At his funeral, mourners report a voice singing drinking songs over the grave. A few months later, the entity announces it is leaving. It says it will return in 7 years. According to the family, in 1828, it did, knocking on the walls of John Bell Jr.'s home, holding conversations, and then, after a few weeks, going silent again. The leading explanation, offered by skeptics from the 19th century onward, is that the entire affair was a hoax orchestrated by Betsy Bell. She was an adolescent girl at the center of every major incident. Ventriloquism was a known parlor skill of the era. Folklorists have pointed out that her engagement was broken off by the entity, which conveniently aligned with her own apparent wishes. What undermines this theory is the scale. The disturbances spanned years, occurred in front of dozens of witnesses, and continued when Betsy was nowhere near the room. A second theory is poisoning. Someone in the household, or someone close to it, may have been slowly administering a toxin to John Bell, masking the murder beneath a supernatural story everyone already believed. The facial paralysis and difficulty swallowing are consistent with certain neurological conditions, but also with several available poisons of the period. What undermines this theory is motive. No one in the family appears to have benefited from his death. A third theory, embraced by paranormal researchers, takes the events at face value. Something intelligent and non-human attached itself to the Bell family, tormented them for 4 years, killed the patriarch, and left. The supporting evidence is the sheer volume of consistent eyewitness testimony from people with no apparent reason to lie. What undermines it is everything we understand about how the physical world works. A fourth possibility, raised by modern folklorists, is that the Bell Witch is a story that grew. That a real disturbance, perhaps minor, perhaps psychological, was amplified across 2 centuries of retelling until it became the version we know now. The earliest surviving written account was published in 18, more than 70 years after John Bell's death. What is documented is this. John Bell died on December 20th, 1820. His death was attributed by his own family, in writing, to an unseen entity that announced its intention to kill him and then claimed credit for the act. The Tennessee State Historical Commission has marked the site. The cave on the former Bell property is open to visitors. No one has ever explained what the vial on the shelf contained. No one has ever explained the voice heard by neighbors, ministers, and strangers across 4 years. No one has ever explained why a frontier farmer, healthy at 50, lost the use of his face and died over the course of a single autumn, exactly as the thing in his house said he would. If you have a theory about what really happened, drop it in the comments. I read every one.